Life is beautiful. Admire it. Life is bliss. Taste it. Life is a dream. Realize it. Life is a challenge. Meet it. Life is a duty. Complete it. Life is a game. Play it. Life is costly. Care for it. Life is wealth. Keep it. Life is love. Enjoy it. Life is misery. Know it. Life is a promise. Fulfill it. Life is sorrowful. Overcome it. Life is a song. Sing it. Life is a struggle. Accept it. Life is tragedy. Confront it. Life is an adventure. Dare it. Life is luck. Make it. Life is too precious. Do not destroy it. Life is life. Fight for it. If I would never meet you, I wouldn't feel the pain. The pain of losing your sweet love. I wouldn't feel insane. But if I would never meet you, if I had never met you, I wouldn't know the pleasure of ecstasy's warm gifts and memories to treasure. Now, moving on with life, I force a wistful grin. The thing, the big deal, the question in my mind is asking you, how come I got to love you so deeply? But indeed, sweet baby, I love you so much. Everyone, I'm sure you're surprised. What is this guy saying this morning? He's going a very different way. What's going on? Okay. Today is World Poetry Day. Today is World Poetry Day. Yeah. World Poetry Day 2025. The theme, poetry as a bridge for peace and inclusion. Yeah. It highlights poetry's role in fostering harmony and cultural understanding. Collaborations including, poetry readings, festivals, competition worldwide, and of course, some other things. Okay. Now, the event promotes linguistic diversity. It promotes creative expression and the enduring influence of poetry in bridging social and cultural divides. World Poetry Day. The theme, like I said, poetry as a bridge for peace and, of course, inclusion. Welcome, everyone. My name is Jude. Ikami Jude. When you say World Poetry Day, is my day. It's my day, I must say. You know why? Because I did so much of poetry. Yeah, I did so much of poetry, plenty of it. But I will be having this conversation, this beautiful conversation around poetry with a poet who is with me in the studio. Yes. Let's talk poetry this afternoon. This morning. It's so beautiful that today is World Poetry Day. Today being the 21st day in the month of March 2025. Everyone, welcome to World Poetry Day. I would want to talk to students alongside. If you're still in school, I would love it when get close to your radio. Said, oh, some of them are still in school. But in case you don't go school today, Maybe they pursue you for school fees. Don't worry. Get close to your radio, okay? Is well. Is well. Everything go better. But then today is World Poetry Day. That's a big deal. And I have a friend who, like I said, is a poet in the studio. He's going to introduce himself now. Go ahead, please. Talk to us.
Good evening, everyone.
It's morning.
Oh, sorry. Good morning, everyone.
Poets, when they are writing, it's always like evening. The whole place is, the atmosphere is chilling. Let me hold on. Talk to us.
All
Go
right.
ahead.
Good morning, everyone. I am Abimbola Abduaris Adebayo, also known as Prolific Pen. I'm a spoken word
Prolific
poet.
pen.
Yeah, and I focus on the niche of multilingual spoken word poetry.
Okay.
Today, I'm repping the brand Poetry Village. So that's why I'm here to discuss poetry.
This is beautiful. This is beautiful. But first of all, how did you pick interest in poetry? Let's start from there.
Poetry, it's something I started when I was in secondary school. I think I developed interest when we started going in depth into poetry, the likes of Bemisola DOT poems, Ambush, and the likes of George Herbert and all the likes like that. So after those travel in school, the struggles of hustling from one class to the other. Then I sat down one day, I started crafting something together, and one of the most significant events that triggered the poet in me was when I lost a friend, I think July 13, 2016 or something. So because me and that's my friends, we had little altercations before. That was the last time we met.
Uh-oh.
So we couldn't meet. It was the day we had a holiday in school then. So we went home. Then it got drowned in a river. So since then, I had it in mind that, okay, let me just write something dedicated to him. That was the first poem I ever wrote. Then after then, when I got admission, so I started developing the brand. I crafted it into something I do as Ramadan Poetic Tour, like every year. So I did the 5th edition this year. So it's still ongoing and the likes like that, and it has been advancing from year to year. So that was just a brief of the aspect.
For you, how would you describe poetry?
I'll say poetry is something that is very, 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 very spiritual to some extent. And also, it is actually something that involves a lot of creativity. I always say something that when you put your wish into your craft, people will call it witchcraft. And
talk to me.
and that's actually one thing that has been driving me for the past few years now.
Okay.
Although there have been a lot of ups and downs, but I always still put that energy in poetry because I believe that anything that you feel like it's your passion, in one way or the other, it will turn to your occupation. And aside from having your certificate, you have to have something that's called your certificate.
Of course.
That is what will recommend you on any platform, and that will be your first identity. So I've created identity with poetry for myself, and it is something I feel like I'll always do without any date for retirement.
Poetry. Sometimes gathering your lines together, how difficult or how tough is it when you are trying to script something really, really, strong, heavy? How do you do that?
I feel like when you're trying to craft something in the poetry, it just depends on how you feel, what the muse is bringing to you. And at times, it might be triggered maybe by deadline of a competition, or maybe you are just in a situation whereby you are feeling you have a particular feeling about something and you want to craft it out, you want to make people feel it. In as much as you want to put it out there, the only way I see the creative block there is when you are trying to make it creative. And poetry these days is something like we are trying to push it out to the world there, let people see the beauty in it. So for someone who is not a poet, one thing I always have in mind is when I'm creating my craft, when I'm writing, I write for people who are not poets, I write for the poets, and I write for people who also want to love poetry. These are the 3 segments of people that I personally categorize my audience to, because when a poet listening to my poem, will be seeing it from another perspective. When someone who is not a poet if someone who is not a poet should listen to my poem, he should be able to comprehend something. And I think that is how poetry should be. It shouldn't be something that it will be a one-way stuff. Like in a particular poem, I don't focus on maybe a particular theme or something like that. My poetry is something that I do that will have in that can have like three sub themes that will interrelate into each other. Maybe we are talking about social justice, and at the same time, and that social justice in the sense that I'm talking about rape, talking about what's it called, these fighting between husband and wife,
Okay.
domestic violence, and
Okay.
all these things. I'll put it on that. And at the same time, you're talking about cultism. At the
Of
same
course.
time, you're talking about drug abuse in just one piece.
Yeah.
And this is one thing that I see like a niche that I have grown on. So at least if I'm talking about something in poetry, it won't just be focused on one thing. And in the way I'm describing it, to the place that the part I'm trying to talk about domestic violence. To some people, it might be domestic violence. Some other person, I'm talking about at the same time, I'm talking about cultism in that aspect. So
Yes.
it is just like trying to make it creative and make people understand the fact that poetry is something everybody can relate with. It's not that Wole Soyinka vibes that everybody is having in their head.
Yeah.
Because some people, when they hear poetry, they just feel like, oh, we're talking about we are here to speak about vocabularies and all this stuff like that. Poetry has been simplified to the extent that everybody can create his own niche. The thing is just that you just don't have to go beyond boundaries, like trying to water down your craft for the acceptability of the people. That is, you don't have to water your originality for societal acceptability. So that's just one thing I'm very careful of.
But some persons find it difficult to fathom bringing in talking about different things at the same time. Like you rightly mentioned, you want to talk about social justice, you want to talk about rape, you want to talk about this, that in one piece. Some people find it difficult to. How did you get to bring it, and make it a whole?
I feel like it depends on the personal experience, how you grow, and every other thing. I'm kind of person that I've experienced, I think, every area, every phases of life, from the aristocrat to the middle class to the peasant level. So in the extent, for example, Lagos as an example, I can barely say there is no part of Lagos that I haven't experienced. So from my experience, I'm able to craft something and do it that way. At times, I'm talking about my own craft personally.
Okay.
We have numerous poets who can actually focus on just one theme throughout, and to be very, very good, a very marvelous poem from that aspect. So, when we talk about poetry now, we have different poets across the globe. And one thing I always focus on is having a selling point, having a uniqueness that people always sought after. So that's what I incorporate into my own craft.
Let's go. Let's start from Nigeria. I don't know who you feel is your poet number one here in Nigeria.
That question look like
Of course.
In Nigeria today, we can't, particularly, I would say we can't rate one particular person as the number one poetry brand or something like that.
Okay.
But of course, we have numerous persons that are very, very popular with this poetry niche. It just depends on where you find yourself in.
Okay.
So we have the likes of IB Quick, we have the likes of Afi, Aremo, Gemini, Victoria, Shaka. Of course, I'll mention myself, Prolific Pen.
I love that.
So,
I love that.
we have the likes of Side Sunday and Dixon Inspires, Oludasa, and likes like that. All of these persons, and I feel like poetry community is that community that grow with love, because is it how if you should know a poet, especially the spoken word poetry community, if you should know a poet, definitely this poet knows another poet, and in one way or the
It's
other,
connected.
in one way or the other, we are interconnected. So we really know each other in that circle. So and I think that has been the motivation behind everybody. There is no one trying to feel superior above any other persons.
Okay. Okay. Outside Nigeria,
Yes.
who would you? I mean, maybe you want to at least first top 10, top 5, or something.
Outside Nigeria, I will say Rudy Francisco. That's when I met him. I think I met him in 2022 when he came to Nigeria for Lagos International Poetry Festival.
Okay.
So, and when I wanted to switch, because I started with page poetry.
Okay.
When I was trying to switch to spoken word poetry, it was one of those persons, he and Aremo Gemini here in Nigeria. And Rudy Francisco was one of those persons that I always watched some of his poems, likes of Islamophobia and likes like that. So it was one of those persons that I can also bank on. Like, I know Brandon Leake,
Okay.
Brandon Lake won the American Got Talent. Was the first spoken word poet to win that, and also, I think no, that was Brandon Lake. Brandon Lake was the first person to win American Got Talent. Then there is this person that petitioned the Grammy. I think it's JIV or something. So he petitioned the Grammy and was the person that allowed Grammy to start nominating spoken word poet. And I think he has won it twice now. So those are the three persons I know. And I know Masai Sepuru from South Africa as well. Yeah.
Okay.
So those are the persons I can mention for now.
I want to share some of your works, because a couple of persons are listening to us now, students, so many other persons, across the world are listening to us right now, and they might want to okay, let's just share some, poetry, with you. Let's just can we talk poetry right now?
Yeah, we can.
In other words, yes.
All right. You mean I should come up with my?
You can if you don't mind.
Ọ̀rọ̀ mẹ́ta la máa fi ṣàpèjúwe ilé, òwe mẹ́ta la máa fi ṣàkàwé ilé, àṣàmọ̀ mẹ́ta la máa pamọ́lé, wọn á nílé kókó ń tágbé, wọn á nílé lábọ̀ sími oko, wọn á sì tún nílé láti ń kẹ́ṣọ̀ ròde. They say charity begins at home. What do you call a place that houses nostalgic depression? A place that takes you back to where you never came from, reminds you of the sacrilege committed before your existence. What should it be called? A house or a home? What do you call a place where love is a collective responsibility, where sleeping is a transit to the valley of paradise, a place where peace can't be torn into pieces and the kitchen time for noodles, crunches, grudges till it fades? Answer me, please. What should it be called? A house or a home? Maybe houses are built with sticks and stones. Maybe home is a place where dreams are being nurtured. Maybe glory only grows at home to build dream houses. Maybe priorities have been misplaced on houses instead of homes. Just maybe. A house is what I've always called home. Torí wọ́n ní bọ́mọdé òkú àgbà ló ń dà. A child who is gifted with longevity becomes an adult. But an adult whose mental health has been adulterated from childhood grows with psychopathic traits. At 7, daddy is a boxer. Every pimple on mommy's face is a punching bag that grows tumor from daddy's punch. His childhood traumatic experience is a negative, nostalgic feeling. Èmi kínkínní létí àwo gbẹ̀gìrì. Bójú bá kúrò ń bẹ́ ọkàn àṣẹ̀tù fárígá. Thought things could change while growing up. But the more years take a stroll annually, the more daddy gets strokes of emotion lashing words. The more daddy gets lashed, the more the sitting room set to host the biggest restomania in the community. Bẹ́ẹ̀ kẹ̀dẹ̀ rí àwọn ọmọ àti máa gbọ́n mi lójú pẹ́ẹ́pẹ́ẹ́pẹ́ láti pẹ̀tù sí ìyá àwọn bàbá nínú. Ẹyin tó yẹ ó dàkúkọ ọtí ẹ̀ rádìyẹ sàbálẹ̀ débi tí ó dòrò mọ́dìyẹ. The child who needs to be a man lacks models who plays the vital developmental roles. The models who supports the bricks to build him lives with a broken face, broken heart, and a cracked skull. Torí bọ́mọ ọba sán lórí ni ọmọ rẹ̀ kọ́ ìgbọ́pá gírí ẹsẹ̀ ìgárá ọlọ́ṣà kò tún dúró fẹ̀yìn ṣá. Òròmọdìyẹ tó fẹ́ dàkúkọ tí ó kọ́ lágbà òsì ní rìn lágbọ́nrin àṣà. Torí kọ̀lọ̀kọ̀lọ̀ tó sọ àgbàdo mọ́dí ni kì máa ń ṣohun àárín-fìn. Àti jẹ àti mu ló sọ lọ́la ẹ̀jù dájà àgbòrò. Adìyẹ kádìyẹ tó bá gbé mú tàbó rìnrìn àrè. Kódà kí ó jẹ́ ti ìrànà, yóò di ohun àjẹgbé. Sharing glad tidings with gladiators only gets young men exposed to hard drugs, cultism, cybercrimes, callous stone-hearted peers pressurizing puff-puff paths of jumbo weeds and intoxicating seeds. For it's high time to simulate sorrows and stimulate the illusion of happiness. Head cracked, gnashing grins, forgetting pains, staying happy, forgetting pills. But in all you do, remember, say if them pass you away to survive today, them say if you pass you away to pass away another day. Now gallant soldier you be, so know the fold up. Amongst any bigay, your heart supposed strong kakaraka. If you reach to cry, I better make the tears flow. Now man, you know be robotic still, crying out your pain, still know me say you weak. You know man make mixed feelings and emotions, they come left, right, center from any flank or wing. Because if life na football pitch, just know say as a man na midfield today. And as a citizen on the pitch, before you see any KDB, we go assist you, you have to fill up your enthusiasm and passion for the goals while folding your emotional chaos. Even if they be red devils, tell them say you know be bench your man to we are number 7, no dey necessary for you to mount them out of your way. Oshamo omokpe. Every way na way, but no go past the way we go lead you astray. We are all playing in the hands of our Creator, and I still remain the prolific one that consistently blades his wishes.
Make I ring bell. Where that belly? Where that belly? Make I carry him. Make I carry him. That was wonderful. That was an awesome piece. That was really, really awesome. While you were rendering all of that, I was wondering, the way you coupled your lines, the way you coupled your words, the way you put them together, you were transcending from English to Pidgin to Yoruba to you were just going that way, and just like you rightly mentioned, I also asked that same question. How were you able to galvanize, put all of these things together, swinging from pidgin to dialect and all of that? How did you do that?
I've trained myself to build a niche around that perspective. I actually see it as a unique selling point that people are not crowded on, and you have to always build an identity for yourself, as I've said earlier, because without an identity, people don't know who you are. When they say they want a poet, maybe they want 10 poets in Nigeria today, what do you have that will make you qualify among the people that will be selected? So these are the things I always tell young poets like me as well, that we should always have a unique selling point, and I think I got mine.
You will give us another one. I hope if I ask for as many as possible, you are ready to dive into it, right?
Yeah, I'm even ready to do more than enough, but we have enough of we'll be having enough of that at our event that will be happening today
Okay.
at Heritage Hall, Ogba. That's Wanderlust. We are celebrating International Poetry Day, and I think most of the poets I've mentioned earlier will be present there. So there will be a lot of poetry performance, and I'll also be performing as well. And that doesn't still hinder anything I'll be doing here.
Our own time, it was William Shakespeare, the greatest English language writer, William Shakespeare's sonnets. Yeah.
Yes.
And his plays and all of that. We repeated so much more.
Yeah, all of those things actually we can still replicate that. What happens to using William Shakespeare's rhyme scheme A B A B C D C D F E F G G? That's his 14-line rhyme scheme. What happens to doing it with pidgin? What happens to doing it with Yoruba? What happens with doing it with English?
Okay.
That people can understand. It's not until we will have it in an archaic form or maybe an obsolete English before we can do that. So we can still grow on that template. We can still grow on that template for the fact that just abiding by the rules. And to be sincere, poets recently, nobody's conforming to any rules particularly. We just want to do poetry and we enjoy what we are doing and pass the message we want to pass. But in as much as we are doing that, of course, we are not departing from that heritage of doing the likes of Shakespeare's poem. But if you are doing this as well, we can just do it, communicate in simple English that everybody will understand.
While we were in school, I had several opportunities to feature. Like I told you, I did so much of poetry. I did my thesis in school. Because first degree was theater arts, right? Before I did mass communication. Now, I did a thesis, poetry. I did it with drums, Yoruba drums.
Wow.
Yeah, I could beat drums very well, very very well. Like I could play like 5 drums on a roll. So I was able to talk with the drum, the djembe drum. I was able to talk, do poetry with drums. That was even my own
selling points.
My own project, final year project. Wow. Of course. That was what I did. And that's why when you came into the studio, I had there's this beauty, there's this thing I felt. And we're going to go back to that. You give us one more before you go. But before that, I remember, what's this man's name now? Who did something about Africa, I will try and remember his name. I think Diop.
Diop.
David Diop. He did something about Africa.
I think his brother is Biago Diop.
Yeah, David Diop did Africa, my Africa, Africa of proud warriors in ancestral savannas, Africa of whom my grandmother sings on the banks of the distant river. I have never known you, but your blood flows in my veins, your beautiful black blood that irrigates the fields, the blood of your sweat, the sweat of your work, the work of your slavery. Africa, tell me, Africa, is this you? Your black that is your back that is bent, this black that breaks under the weight of humiliation, this back trembling with red scars and saying yes to the whip under the midday sun. But a grave voice answered me, Africa. Give us one more before you go, please.
wọ́n ní dúdú lára dúdú láṣà dúdú lògbóǹtarìgì ọmọkùnrin tó rí kọjá tí gbogbo ọmọge yọwọ́ ọṣẹ́ dúdú lọmọge rọ̀gbọ̀dọ̀ bí ọ̀ká ẹlẹ́yinjú ẹgẹ́ onígìgísẹ̀ kóró òsì tó rí kọjá ní kòòdú ọ̀gá tó fi dáṣàlẹ̀ jẹ̀jẹ̀ bí ẹni òróbìnrin rí dúdú lórísun mi tí ó lè láéláé gbẹ. Africa is my heritage, so I can bank on it. I need no alcohol to tell you Africa is my origin. I can never depart from this path. It's already part of me. This part of the world obtains every part of my heart, including my renal arteries. Africa, the home of resilience, love, and originality. Like Ngungi wa Thiong'o, I'm saying this black skin is a black hermit that permits me to embrace my culture and tradition as a way of life and not as a superstitional belief that is liable to harm me. Being a black man doesn't mean I'm sheriff, so don't castigate me as a villain I never was. I shall marry when I want, where I want, and how I want. Not to be ushered to the altar to utter self-imprisonment statement through my signature. I am an African who can be caged in the shackles of religion and bow gullibly to a scumbag that accumulates 10% of the congregation's income to build his personal wealth and that of his accomplice. But wait, the last time I checked, both the rich and the poor pay tithes and offerings, and it's still very tight for the poor man to offer his child sound education the rich school built from his hard-earned contribution. This white head has done more harm than good. Giving us education was an erroneous decision, because the sword that was meant to behead us was the pathfinder to our liberation.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming, to the studio. I feel we should just continue because this is my field. This is my area, right? But I know someday I'm going to have you again in the studio and would have enough time to talk and to impact lives out there, students and everyone out that are listening to us. Thank you so much for coming.
You're welcome.
I do appreciate you. Of course, have a great celebration today.
All right.
Where did you say is the venue again?
Ikeja.
Where exactly?
At Heritage Hall, Ogba.
Heritage Hall,
Yeah.
Ogba. Okay.
So
Thank you.
it's being organized by Poetry Village, and I'm representing the Poetry Village brand here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you. Voice of the People 90.3 FM. It was so beautiful. I will be back after this break, and when I return, we will have a business talk briefly, and then if we still have the time, we'll do a little bit of politics, and we're just good to go. Everyone, my name is Jude Ikami Jude. Just stay there for me. I will be right back. Just don't go away, okay?